Now, police in the Free State are investigating the sudden death of a decorated head of detectives in the province, Brigadier Jackson Mkhaulesi. Brigadier Mkhaulesi is known as the sleuth that brought Facebook rapist Thabo Bester and his lover, Dr. Nandipa Makutumana, to South Africa from Tanzania in April to face the music. Reports are that the 59-year-old top cop died by suicide in Bloemfontein last week. For more on this, we join now my criminal law expert, William Booth. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's alleged that Brigadier Mkhaulesi feared for his safety before his death. It's also reported that he believed he was being followed and that he'd, in fact, alerted his seniors about fears for his safety. What is your reaction, after hearing this?
Paul, good evening. Yes, look, obviously it is concerning, and his death has to be investigated. It does seem to be a little bit odd that he would commit suicide, but one really never knows. One doesn't know what's going on in his background, in maybe his personal life. But it's certainly an aspect that needs to urgently be investigated. If there has been certain issues pertaining to his safety and his security, then, it becomes even more odd that he should commit suicide. I mean, we've had a number of instances where police officers have been murdered. We know in the Western Cape, Colonel Kinnear was murdered. He had certain issues with regard to security. His security was taken away, and then he was shot dead in his driveway at his home. So, it does seem to be a bit odd, but, the police need to investigate this very, very thoroughly, so it could be, determined what is the actual cause. One can't jump up and point fingers until the cause of death is determined. I'm not sure whether there's been, any real evidence that he has committed suicide. I think that needs to be, seriously cleared up. Was there a note left? Why is there talk about suicide in the media? And then, of course, the cause of death has to be determined, and exactly, the circumstances surrounding his death. Is there any indication that it could, in fact, have been a hit, or was it a situation where he had taken his own life?
Yeah.
But again, why would he, senior police officer, do that?
A senior police officer who was very concerned for his safety. Would you say that that concern in particular is an isolated case, or perhaps a norm when a senior investigator takes on a so-called high-profile case?
Well, look, with any high-profile cases, it's not just one investigator. There has to be a team. And particularly with the Bester matter, there has to be a significant team of investigators who will have to include seasoned police officers with experience pertaining to investigation. This is quite a unique kind of case. And also police officers who have experience and expertise in forensics and other aspects relating to a thorough investigation. So not one police officer investigating, he leads the team. And for proper thorough investigation in a case like this, you have to have a number of police officers. But if there's been talk of threats and that his security is, an issue, then somebody should have done something about that immediately. I don't know what security there was. One would hope that any police officer involved in a case like this would have the necessary security. I mean, you can't come and say, well, we don't have the money for that. It's got to be determined, because this is now a flaw in this whole investigation. Others can take over, but he's the lead investigator with the most experience in that province, and he headed the investigating team. So, it is rather, tragic, certainly, that this has happened, and could put a dent in the thorough investigation of the matter. But I hope somebody can step into his shoes and take over the lead investigation.
How much of a dent could this lead to? I mean, you speak about a team that works together, but, he was a senior investigator.
Yes, obviously, and I'm not sure who his who IC is, or what other investigators that were involved. One would assume they would also have been fairly senior in the whole aspect of thorough investigation of criminal matters. But your lead investigator is, as with your lead prosecutor or lead defense counsel in a matter that is on trial or goes to court, is a very prominent figure and runs the show and has to allocate the work to other investigators. But we hope that the others that are there on this team would be able to step in and continue with the investigation. This is such a bizarre case involving so many different people that one doesn't want things to go wrong. In South Africa, a lot of things have gone wrong with investigation, prominent cases that have fallen apart because the investigation of those matters has not been done properly. And, a prosecutor needs a thorough and a proper and an experienced investigator to run a case properly to secure a conviction. We don't want things going and falling apart.
In such a bizarre case, depression has not been ruled out, because there are also some reports that speak to the visibly distraught state he was in before leaving court, and how perhaps, one source says he was seen leaving in tears. Looking at the kind of work, the nature of work, the pressures and the threats that could come with it, how much support is there when it comes to psychological support within the police force, especially at such a level, and looking at such matters?
Well, I'm not really sure what psychological support he had or what was in fact happening. And maybe it was some issues that are personal. But my experience that is, and I have dealt with a number of matters where I've represented senior police officers in matters where it's clear that there isn't sufficient support and psychological assistance. Detectives and all police work under massive, massive pressure. They've got too many case dockets that they have to carry, and particularly now we've got so many different cases, throughout South Africa, corruption matters involving very senior persons in this country that require hours of investigation, research, and putting together a proper case. So there is massive, massive pressure on those police. So one would have to ask, why do police not have the assistance? There are psychologists, who are seconded to the police, and those who are in the police who are psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., but not sufficient. And, as in any profession, it gets to you the pressure, and particularly where it's not just the normal day-to-day pressure. The public out there are calling for cases to be thoroughly investigated. And when you know how much, the normal detective at a police station, how much work he's got to do, it's just really unacceptable. Something needs to be done about that. Better facilities, conditions. Sometimes their offices are shared. You go to a lot of police stations and you wonder how any of these detectives actually manage to get through the day because of the number of cases they've got to do.
Very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for weighing in on this discussion.